So, it's another Bethesda video. At this point, I'm starting to sound like a bitter ex who spends their whole time saying how much better off they are now, despite constantly bringing them up. Despite saying that they've moved on, they just can't. Like, I remember the good times when we were together. Morrowind, Oblivion, Fallout 3. We were so good together. And then we were at our best when Skyrim arrived. But after Fallout 3, our relationship started to become so one-sided, and then Bethesda later started asking me to do some freaky alien stuff in Starfield. It was horrible, and I'm so glad that I left. But then again, Skyrim. Anyway, it's never good to start a video on a random tangent, but today I want to discuss mods and Bethesda. Many different games online have offered mods and have active modding communities, but if you log into Steam and take a look, Bethesda are still the best when it comes to this stuff. With the ease of use for the creation kit and the creation engine, it makes it more user accessible and easier for the modders to, create. But on the other hand, the creation engine has some serious limitations, has many bugs, and can lead to issues highlighted in Starfield, from glitches to the 1,000 loading screens that we saw. With the release of Fallout London just recently, it shows what the modding community can do with these tools, and I'm not sure if any other gaming studio has as many committed modders. But is the simplicity of the creation engine holding Bethesda back? Well, let's get into it and discuss it in further detail. Really quick, I'm not a modder, coder or game developer, I'm just a massive fan of games who can barely put together a video, so I apologise if I get anything wrong in this video. I'm not claiming to be an expert. On the other hand, if there are any experienced game developers or modders in the community, please leave a comment and contribute to the discussion, as I would love to hear your opinion on this matter. Quick side note, I just want to say thank you for the support I've received recently. I've loved interacting with the comments, and it's awesome to discuss my favourite gaming topics with fellow fans. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Anyway, back to the video. So let's start with briefly discussing what the creation engine and kit is. After using the Gamebryo engine to create Morrowind, Oblivion and Fallout 3, Bethesda decided that Gamebryo's capabilities were becoming too outdated and began to work on the creation engine for their next game, Skyrim, by forking the codebase for Fallout 3. Essentially, they took the source code from Gamebryo engine and made changes to make it a distinctly different piece of software. So it's different yet the same, if that makes any sense. Anyway, they would continue to make amendments to this creation engine over time and make it more modern and add more and different upgrades over time. For example, they added a physically based deferred renderer to allow for more dynamic lighting, which you could see in Fallout 4. Bethesda Game Studios Austin was tasked with modifying the creation engine to support multiplayer content for the development of Fallout 76. And then in June of 2021, Bethesda revealed that they were working on a new iteration of the engine called Creation Engine 2. This would include improved texture resolution, advanced volumetric lighting, and other upgrades. But look, in layman terms, it's been the same engine in some type of way, even since the early days, which Bethesda have then made amendments to over time. The Creation Kit is a modding tool for the Creation Engine games. The Creation Kit takes advantage of the Creation Engine's modular nature. It was created by Bethesda Game Studios for the modding community of the Elder Scrolls series. The tool can be used to create worlds, NPCs, weapons, fix bugs, make quests, basically all the mods that you can think of. Mods created using this tool are hosted on the Steam Workshop, Nexus Mods, among other sites. A new creation kit with the support for Starfield's Creation Engine 2 was then released on June of 2024. Now, going back to the modding community, essentially Bethesda have made the modding experience as friendly as possible and easy to implement. They have, in fairness, offered huge support to the modding community. This has resulted in Bethesda having arguably the most active modding community out of any gaming company. Skyrim released in 2011. It was a fantastic game by its own rights, but since then, as of right now, there are over 70,000 mods available for it. 70,000. That's mental. But it means another thing. Skyrim was born in 2011, and yet it still lives in 2024 as the game is technically still receiving updates every single day. It gives its games longer lives and players more reasons to return. Fallout 4 was launched in 2015, and just recently a game-sized mod was introduced called Fallout London. The reviews have been stellar, but it shows how a game from 2015 is still alive even 10 years later. So for all their faults, Bethesda have supported their modding community with the creation kit, and they've been rewarded for it. If you go to Nexus, you will see the gap between Bethesda game modding community compared to the rest of the game section that has mods. Safe to say, Creation Engine and the Creation Kit is a hugely valuable tool for Bethesda's success. So, all good, yeah? Well, maybe not. I mean, this is life, right? There's always a catch. So one of the biggest problems with the Creation Engine is that it's old. It's also extremely buggy. It has limitations and quirks as well. I recently did a video on this discussing how Starfield looked incredibly aged compared to more recent releases like Cyberpunk 2077 or Red Dead Redemption 2. I'll link the video in the description now, but some of these limitations are things like constant loading screens, limited animations, among other things. Now, I'm not going to talk about this too much here, but just to summarise, Bethesda games appear a lot more simple compared to more modern titles, which is partly down to the engine. So basically, the question is, should Bethesda change the engine to say like an Unreal Engine? It would bridge the gap between the more recent titles released and attempt to get their games looking even more modern. Would offer new animations and gameplay options, but then again, on the other hand, should they do that at the sacrifice of the mods? In my opinion, this is not a straightforward answer, but there's a massive thing to point out. Mods are important to a Bethesda game if the game is successful initially. See, Skyrim released in 2011, it sold 7 million copies in its first week. It scored tremendously well across all major review platforms and it won Game of the Year. Fallout 4 sold 12 million copies in just 24 hours after it came out. Again, it scored well across the board and it had a massive fan base. Now, due to these games being so successful, it meant that modders could release mods knowing that people would be playing and they'd be there to download and enjoy their work. Now, Skyrim still has an active fan base and over 70,000 mods. Fallout 4 has the same, so in reality, it was the right decision to keep the Creation Engine and offer mod support, as opposed to switching to a newer engine at the expense of having the Creation Kit. The problem we have now is Starfield. Now, I've done a video on this already, discussing the game's faults, and I'll link it in the description, but just to quickly summarise, it had too many loading screens, procedural generated content overload, uninspiring writing, boring dialogue, no actual space travel, too many Radiant quests, and it was just in general quite boring. In reality, if they had released this game exactly as it is now, but on a different engine, it would have scored the same. In reality, although the Creation Engine may have its limitations, the problems with Starfield are bigger than that. The problems go beyond just a creaky engine. The game design and execution were not the Bethesda that we all grew up with. Where was all the handcrafted open world content? Where were the exciting quest lines? The game design itself was the major problem, not the engine. So back to my point about Skyrim and Fallout 4, their success allowed modders to get involved and help the game grow. They knew people loved it, played it often, and they knew that their mods would be downloaded and enjoyed. Their efforts would be worth it. With Starfield, that's just not the case. At the time of this recording, Starfield has an active player count of just 5,117 on a daily basis, with a 24-hour peak of just 7,454. Starfield has lost 97% of its Steam players in less than 6 months. Now, if you were a modder, would you spend hours of your free time building giant mods for such a low player count? Most likely not, and many well-known mod creators have already stated that they're not going to do so for Starfield. So the problem is actually this: in order for Bethesda to have a successful modding community and a game that can live on forever, their initial game has got to be good. I know some people say that mods are the only reason why Bethesda have been successful, and whilst it's definitely helped, you don't sell 7 million copies in 24 hours just because of future modding opportunities. Fallout 4, Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind, this is Bethesda. Open world RPGs with depth, random events, hundreds of handcrafted dungeons, interesting side quests, this is what the fans want. Starfield had none of that. As a result, the game scored poorly, it has a lower player count than most of their previous games, and as a result, a low amount of mods. If the game is poor, the rest falls apart. So back to my initial question, are mods holding Bethesda back because of the creation engine? The answer is up to you to decide. The engine is dated, and as a result, Bethesda games look more basic when you compare them to newer titles. But, on the other hand, no other game has modding communities like Bethesda games, as of right now anyway. But either way, it doesn't really matter what engine Bethesda use because the problem is bigger than an engine or mod support. The problem is that Starfield lacked inspiration like their previous titles. Bethesda needs to go back and look at their previous games and realise what it was that made their game so successful. If they ever do decide to change engines, it would certainly help them create a better game overall, but if the mod support was limited as a result, I'm not so sure whether that would be the right move. The creation engine, although limited, offers so much freedom to its modders, but those modders will only utilise those tools if Bethesda can release a game that is successful in the first place. The problem is not the engine, the problem is Starfield, the problem is Bethesda. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say on the matter, but I really would want to hear your thoughts on the subject. I mean, what do you think? Should they consider a new engine, or do you believe that the creation engine is still the way to go? Are there any modders here who can give some sort of insight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, please give it the thumbs up, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'm Av Gaming, where we do video game analysis, identifying what makes great games great and what could make good games great as well. Thanks for watching. Av out.